these are the headlines that we're following at this hour. Tomorrow is D-Day to decide who will take the seats in South Korea's 22nd National Assembly. Rival parties are stretching their final campaign efforts to win over more voters. Amid the standoff between the government and the doctors, there also seems to be internal division within the medical community. A joint briefing by major doctors groups to seek a unified voice for talks with the government has been cancelled. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says there's a set date to send ground forces into Rafah in southern Gaza, where around 1.5 million displaced Palestinians have sought shelter. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. There is just 1 day left before voters in Korea go to polls to decide a new 300-member National Assembly. It's a crucial election that could greatly impact rules that affect the lives of people here in the country. Our Shin-Young starts us off.
After about 2 weeks of competitive election campaigns, all that remains is the people's choice. The April election comes almost 2 years after conservative President Yoon's victory in the 2022 presidential election, where he narrowly defeated Democratic Party's candidate Lee Jae-myung by a margin of 0.73%, the smallest margin in South Korean history. For this year's election, the number of seats for elected lawmakers has increased to 254 from 253, with 1 seat taken from the proportional representation bloc, which dropped to 46 from 47, keeping the total number of lawmakers at the National Assembly at 300. Winning at least 150 of the 300 seats grants the party the power to pass budget bills and various laws. Any party that secures 3/5 or more of the National Assembly members, meaning 180 seats or more, will have strong legislative power, including the ability to fast-track bills. In the 2020 general election, the DP and its satellite party won 180 seats, resulting in a minority government with the Yoon administration taking office. Obtaining over 2/3, which is at least 200 National Assembly seats, further strengthens authority, allowing for constitutional amendments, dismissal of legislators, and even the ability to initiate presidential impeachment. As the Yoon administration enters its 3rd year in office, the DP is determined to maintain its dominance to act as a counterbalance to the ruling party and the Yoon administration. For the ruling People Power Party, this year's race is considered crucial because failing to secure a majority could potentially render President Yoon a lame duck for the remainder of his term. Meanwhile, according to the National Election Commission, the turnout for early voting reached 31.28%, a new record in the history of general elections in South Korea. The PPP attributed the strong turnout to people's judgment toward the main opposition party, while the DP viewed it as a sign of strong public sentiment against the government. Eyes are now on how the April election will reshape the political landscape for the next 4 years, including the remainder of the Yoon administration's term. Shin-Young, Arirang News.
And with the 22nd parliamentary election kicking off tomorrow, our Peunji touches upon some of the interesting factors of this race based on numbers. Take a listen.
The general election is South Korea's biggest political event this year. You might be wondering how it works and what's different in 2024. Let's take a look at the election by the numbers. The voting age in South Korea is 18 after the country lowered the age limit from 19 in December 2019. Citizens born before April 11, 2006 are eligible to vote in this year's general election. This means more than 44 million Koreans will be heading to almost 15,000 polling stations across the country that'll be open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. There, voters will receive 2 ballot papers. One is to vote for a candidate running for their constituency, and the other is to vote for the party they support for proportional representation seats. This year, the ballot papers for proportional representation seats are the longest ever used in Korea. It's 51.7 centimeters long, as 38 parties have registered to battle over these seats. This is even longer than the last election in 2020, when the ballot paper was over 48 centimeters long, with 35 parties running. Before that, in 2016 and in 2012, the papers were about 30 centimeters. Just as in the 2020 election, the votes will have to be counted by hand, as electronic counters cannot read papers this long. Moving on to the candidates running for individual districts, the average competition rate stands at around 2.8 to 1 this year, the lowest in 39 years. In 2020, the rate was 4.4 to 1. Of the 699 candidates that have registered in 254 districts nationwide, 86% are men, leaving women as an unrepresentative minority. The average age of the candidates is 56.8, 2 years older than in 2020. Those in their 50s took up nearly half of the candidates, followed by those in their 60s and 40s. The youngest candidate is 28 years old, whereas the oldest is 85, born in 1938. By job, 65% of the candidates were professional politicians, 8% were attorneys, and 5% were professors or educators. Doctors and pharmacists accounted for about 1% of the total. The vote count for this year's election is expected to take about 2 more hours than usual and will likely have the final results at around 2 a.m. the next day.
Shifting gears, a joint press conference by different areas of South Korea's medical community that was scheduled to go ahead this Friday has been canceled. That's according to a briefing by the Korea Medical Association on Tuesday. The KMA added that further mediation is still needed with and among other related groups, including the Korean Intern Resident Association, and said they'll get ready to speak in one voice as soon as possible. But the KMA reiterates that the medical community agrees with a proposal that rediscussions are needed about the government's plan to increase the medical school enrollment quota. President Yoon on Tuesday asked the country's Coast Guard to continue taking stern action against illegal fishing by Chinese boats to safeguard maritime security. The president boarded a patrol ship off the coast of Incheon to hear about how the Coast Guard is cracking down on illegal fishing, particularly Chinese boats, in West Sea waters under South Korea's jurisdiction during spring crabbing season. Yoon said the issue must be addressed from the perspective of protecting South Korea's fisheries resources. He noted that even North Korea, which is militarily aligned with China, also cracks down on illegal fishing by Chinese fishing boats. The president last month ordered strong response measures after hearing a personal appeal from a Korean fisherman at a public policy discussion. This prompted a week-long special crackdown that seized 5 illegal Chinese boats and 36 vessels that were evicted from Korean waters. President Yoon has pledged to invest nearly $7 billion into artificial intelligence, including AI semiconductors, over the next 3 years. The top office said Yoon convened a meeting on Tuesday, introducing his administration's AI initiative to turn South Korea into one of the top 3 global powers in the technology and number 1 when it comes to AI semiconductors by capturing 1/10 of the global market. Yoon said that the government will spend 9.4 trillion won, or $6.9 billion by 2027, and create a $1 billion fund to support innovative AI chip firms. He said he would directly supervise a new national AI committee to coordinate various public-private efforts. Also, as South Korea plans to build a more than $450 billion semiconductor megacluster south of Seoul, Yoon promised to consider more investment incentives to create an optimal environment for innovation. South Korea's second military reconnaissance satellite, launched on Monday, has successfully communicated with the country's ground station. The Defense Ministry said Tuesday that the satellite currently in orbit made contact at 5:53 p.m. on Monday after it was launched from a space center in Florida on Monday morning Korea time. Although it is Korea's second reconnaissance satellite, it's the country's first SAR type. It's expected to boost the military surveillance of North Korea as SAR satellites can capture images day or night regardless of weather conditions. China's third highest ranking official is set to visit North Korea this week, further strengthening their bilateral ties. Beijing's foreign ministry announced Tuesday that Zhao Leji, a member of the Standing Committee of the Chinese Communist Party's Politburo, will visit Pyongyang from April 11th to 13th. It said he'll attend the opening ceremony of the China-North Korea Friendship Year, marking 75 years of their diplomatic ties. North Korea's state media also said Tuesday that a Chinese delegation led by Zhao will be visiting Pyongyang without any further details. Zhao will be the highest-ranking official to visit the North since the regime opened its border following the COVID-19 pandemic. Israel says a date has been set for its ground offensive into the city of Rafah in southern Gaza. This looks to be a direct opposition to reported progress in recent truce talks between Israel and Hamas. Our Park Gun-woo explains.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday local time that a date has been set for an invasion of Rafah, where around 1.5 million displaced Palestinians are sheltering.
Today, I received a detailed report on the talks in Cairo. We are constantly working to achieve our goals. First and foremost, the release of all our hostages and achieving a complete victory over Hamas. This victory requires entry into Rafah and the elimination of the terrorist battalions there. It will happen. There is a date.
Though Netanyahu's statement did not have a specific date, his remarks appear to directly oppose reports that truce talks had seen progress. And as the U.S. said that it wasn't seeing any signs of massive operations or rearranging of troops by Israel, and as a recent withdrawal was made from southern Gaza, some predict that Netanyahu's recent statement about the ground offensive was not his actual intention. This comes after the U.S. delivered new negotiations proposals to both Israel and Hamas in truce talks in Cairo over the weekend. The talks proposed by CIA Director Bill Burns included trading 40 Israeli hostages for 900 Palestinian prisoners and allowing refugees in the southern city of Gaza to return to the north without any restrictions. Both Israel and Hamas are reported to agree on reviewing the proposal. But Israel is reported to be especially against Gazans returning north, as it could raise possibilities for the survival of Hamas. And a Hamas official said early Tuesday that the latest ceasefire deal proposed by Israel and delivered by Egyptian, Qatari, and American mediators was not agreeable, but said they would review the proposal and respond later on. As of Monday, over 33,000 Palestinians have been killed and nearly 76,000 wounded, while the death toll for Israel has reached 1,139, with dozens still held captive since the war started October 7th. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
And elsewhere, as gang violence continues in Haiti, 11 South Korean citizens have been evacuated from the Caribbean nation. The foreign ministry said on Tuesday that the South Korean nationals were airlifted to the neighboring Dominican Republic via helicopter the day before. It added that there are currently around 60 South Koreans still in Haiti and that the government has been checking on their safety with an emergency helpline. Last month, the South Korean government evacuated 2 citizens from Haiti as the security situation worsened. The island nation has seen political instability and poverty since the assassination of then-President Jovenel Moïse in 2021. Moving on, Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company will reportedly make its most advanced chips in the U.S. state of Arizona, having secured a substantial subsidy pledge from the U.S. This as the Biden administration continues its efforts to shift global chip production into North America. Shin Se-byuk reports.
The U.S. Department of Commerce announced on Monday a significant subsidy of $6.6 billion to support the Taiwanese chipmaker TSMC. This move aligns with the 2022 CHIPS Act, a flagship policy of U.S. President Joe Biden, aimed at reshoring semiconductor supply chains to the U.S. after a decades-long shift to Asia. The latest announcement exceeds initial estimates by more than 30% from an expected $5 billion. In addition, the initiative includes up to $5 billion in low-interest government loans, bringing the total support to $11.6 billion. Monday's announcement came as TSMC outlined plans to increase its investment in the U.S. from $25 billion to $65 billion and to establish a third factory in Phoenix, Arizona by 2030. This expansion represents the largest foreign direct investment in U.S. history, highlighting TSMC's commitment to growing its U.S. operations. The Commerce Department expects TSMC's U.S. investment to create a significant economic impact by generating about 6,000 manufacturing jobs and 20,000 construction jobs. President Biden, in a statement on Monday, underscored the critical need for this initiative, noting Washington's vulnerability due to its inability to manufacture the most sophisticated semiconductors. He also emphasized that the CHIPS Act positions the U.S. to account for approximately 20% of global production of cutting-edge chips by 2030. Last month, the U.S. government unveiled a nearly $20 billion support package for the American chipmaker Intel. Attention now shifts to Samsung Electronics, with expectations over an announcement related to a subsidy for the South Korean chipmaker next week. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
In other news, there has been a significant demographic development here on the local front. The number of one-person households has surpassed 10 million, accounting for over 40% of Korea's total households. Lee Seung-jae has more.
According to data from the Ministry of Interior and Safety on Tuesday, the number of single-person households in South Korea stood at 10,021,413 as of March this year, marking the first time the figure has reached the 10 million mark. That's compared to 9,981,702 single-person households the previous month. Among the over 24 million households nationwide, single-person households make up 41.8%, or 2 out of 5. By age group, those in their 60s make up the highest proportion of people living in single-person households at over 1.86 million, followed by those in their 30s at over 1.68 million, and those in their 50s at over 1.64 million. People in their 70s and above accounted for over 1.98 million. By region, Gyeonggi-do Province and Seoul had the highest proportion of single-person households. There were also more men living alone than women. The number of smaller-sized households, which consists of one- and two-person households, is increasing, while the number of larger households is decreasing. While the number of two-person households also increased slightly in March, the number of four-person households decreased from over 3.12 million households to around 3.11 million. The government believes that the proportion of single-person households is increasing due to the higher number of seniors living alone and the rise in unmarried people. It says it will continue to explore various policies centered on single-person households. In particular, the government is exploring policies related to rising food prices and stable housing as its top priority. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Staying with statistics, the number of female workers here in Korea hit a record high last year. Data from Statistics Korea on Tuesday show the number of female salary workers standing at nearly 10 million in 2023, up more than 280,000 on year. Women workers accounted for a record 45.7% of the nation's paid workforce last year. And on the cultural front, the reputation of Korean books and authors has been growing globally. Especially this year, Korean children's book authors have been shining at Italy's major book fair. Our Choi Soo-hyung tells the story.
Recently, the international reputation of Korean books and authors has been growing. In Italy, at the Bologna Children's Book Fair 2024, the largest children's book exhibition in the world, many Korean children's book authors are invited to show their works to the world. The Culture Ministry in South Korea has doubled the Korean author exhibition space at the fair compared to last year. So, 18 Korean children's book authors can meet overseas readers and publishing companies in person to promote their work. At this year's Bologna Book Fair, Korean picture book author Kim Ji-an, who won the Bologna Ragazzi Award Comics for Early Readers with As You Drive, shared her thoughts about the pure joy to be found in her book.
Regardless of the situation, we should be able to run with joy as our engine and fuel, and the ones who understand this joy the best are the child readers. We adults should help continue building a society where children can experience joy.
For 40 years, the Korean children's book author Lee Gumi has been comforting children and teenagers with numerous books.
Children's life experiences like school may be different by country, but feelings of joy and sorrow and challenges are universally shared. I hope my work can bring them some comfort and give children some faith in humanity and hope for the world.
The 62-year-old was listed among the final 6 nominees for the Hans Christian Andersen Award, the highest award in children's literature. The award, presented every 2 years since 1956 by the International Board on Books for Young People, evaluates the lifetime achievements of children's book authors worldwide. The announcement was made on Monday local time at the fair. Even though Austrian author Heinz Janisch won the award, Yi said she was proud of being a finalist.
It's an honor that judges showed interest in Korean literature for children. I hope this sparks more awareness of Korean children's books worldwide. I feel proud to be able to take a small part in spreading awareness.
The government plans to strengthen the global expansion of K-picture books through appropriate local support initiative. The Bologna Children's Book Fair 2024 will run until April 11th. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
We are entering the middle of spring. The daytime temperature in Seoul rose to 20 degrees Celsius. Temperatures all day today were higher than they were at the same point in previous years. You only need to keep in mind the huge daily temperature differences, both in the morning and in the evening. While dry weather warnings have been issued in the Seoul metropolitan area and some parts of Chungcheongbuk-do province, the dry weather continues in the central inland areas as well, so please take extra precautions with wildfires. Tomorrow, the whole country will be mostly sunny, but it will gradually get cloudy. Seoul, Daejeon, Gwangju, and Busan will start off at 8 degrees Celsius. Daily highs will move up to 19 in Seoul and Chuncheon, Gyeongju and Jeju, 18 degrees. Rain is expected in some central and northern parts of the country on Thursday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Well, that is all for this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with the AI headline news. Good night.